Hey guys, tonight we slip back into the uneven cobblestones and stinking alleyways of a medieval town where your new life, yes, your unfortunate new profession, has just begun. It's early morning, not that you can tell. The light barely filters through the slats of the crooked wooden shutters. The scent hits you first: sweat, damp straw, something mouldy, and possibly dead rat. You're lying on what someone once proudly called a mattress, but it's mostly a flattened sack stuffed with straw, lice, and unfulfilled dreams. One of those sharp stalks jabs your shoulder as you roll over. You've got a headache, not the kind that comes from too much thinking, mind you, but the kind born from cheap wine and cheaper company. Your mouth tastes like old pennies, and there's a disturbing crunch when you bite down on what you hope was just a breadcrumb. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. And the chill? Oh, it's everywhere. The thin wool blanket, if you haven't pawned it already, does absolutely nothing against the morning draft creeping in through the cracks of your lean-to room above the cook's stable. A rooster crows somewhere far off, not your cue to rise for a grand feast or a brisk walk in the gardens. No, your cue is the slow groan in your stomach and the realization that the stale crust under your cot was your last edible possession. This is how mornings begin when you're a harlot in medieval times. No breakfast platters or handmaids bringing hot towels. You rub your face with a sleeve that smells like armpit and wood smoke, and do your best to shake off the cobwebs in your brain. There's no mirror, but if there were, you probably wouldn't look. Here's your first task: survive the first hour. Your feet hit the floor, or at least what passes for it. Cold, damp, and covered in something vaguely sticky. Best not to ask. You grope around for your shift, a rough linen thing that doubles as sleepwear, workwear, and sometimes mop. It's crumpled at the foot of the cot. When you slip it on, it clings to your skin in all the wrong places, like a wet slap from last night's regrets. Your little room is attached to a tumble-down inn of questionable repute. It's run by a widow whose name you don't know, and whose face you've only seen scowling. She gave you this space in exchange for entertainment services delivered to her less discerning patrons. In modern terms, rent-controlled nightmare. You can hear movement downstairs, boots stomping, laughter that sounds more like coughing, and the familiar scrape of a chair being dragged across dirt-packed floorboards. A customer's still here from last night, or worse, coming back for a morning session. You tiptoe to the slanted shutter and push it open. The view is poetic, if your poetry includes dead cats, smoke-belching chimneys, and children defecating in the street. There's a woman with a crooked back shaking a rug out the window across from you. She spits, misses the gutter, and yells something obscene at a goat. You wonder for a moment what would have happened if you'd made different choices. But that's a luxury you can't afford, not today. You spot a small hunk of bread left by one of the other girls on the sill. It's rock hard and probably older than your last bath. Still, you grab it like it's treasure and gnaw the corner. It flakes like plaster. Your stomach groans in disapproval, but you ignore it. You need to be up and ready soon. Clients don't like it when you're late to the alley behind the blacksmiths, or worse, when you look like you've just crawled out of a chimney, even if you have. Here's the thing most history books skip. Harlots weren't all velvet gowns and flirty winks. You're not some highborn courtesan serenaded by poets and nobles. You're scraping by, 1 shilling at a time, and praying you don't catch lice again. Fun fact, in many towns, harlots were legally required to wear distinctive clothing. Sometimes stripes, sometimes bright hoods, just so respectable folk could avoid you. Not that it stopped them from showing up after dark. Scholars remain divided on just how regulated your line of work truly was in smaller parishes. Some say you had certain protections. Others argue you were one small accusation away from prison, or worse, a dunking stool in the village square. Your joints creak as you stand. The air smells of last night's fire, stale sweat, and boiled onions from the inn kitchen. You grab the bucket in the corner, half full of rainwater if you're lucky, and splash your face. It's shockingly cold. There's a moment where you debate whether to dunk your whole head, but the idea of pneumonia gives you pause. Welcome to your new life. It's not glamorous, it's not clean, and it most certainly isn't easy. But hey, at least the lice haven't bitten your eyebrows off. Yet. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing that. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You tie back your hair, roll your neck, and take your first barefoot step onto the splintery floor. Another day awaits, if you can call it that. You shuffle down the crooked wooden stairs, each creak of the boards beneath your bare feet sounding louder than the last. Downstairs the air thickens, part mead, part mildew, and part something best not investigated. You pass by the open door to the main room of the inn, catching a glimpse of two men slumped over a table snoring softly. One of them clutches a tankard, the other has his face planted squarely in a bowl of cold stew. The floor is sticky beneath your toes, but shoes are a luxury reserved for when you go out. Today, you might, if your last client hasn't started rumours or stolen your only set of half-decent skirts. Again. You duck into the narrow hallway beside the hearth and make your way toward the courtyard pump. The air's still icy, and you can see your breath fog in front of you as you step into the daylight. The courtyard's a mud pit, hooves, chamber pot runoff, and God knows what else. And of course, the pump handle's frozen. You knock your knuckles against it a few times, then manage to wrench it loose and draw a few slow streams of bitter water. You splash your face again and let it drip down your neck. It's shocking. It wakes you up. Kind of. You glance around. Nobody's watching. You lift your arm and sniff. Yup, still smell like despair. There's no soap. What you have instead is a lumpy grey paste made from wood ash, animal fat, and a prayer. You smear a bit under your arms, scrub the worst of the dirt off your elbows, and rinse again, fast. You'll smell like a campfire in a butcher shop, but it's better than smelling like yourself. Behind you, a hen cackles madly from the rubbish pile. You glance back and see it pecking furiously at what might have once been a turnip, possibly a toe. Time to dress. Your shift's already on, so next comes the outer layer. A threadbare kirtle that's been patched more times than you can count, most recently with someone else's undergarments. You lace it up as best you can, one of the grommets tears as you tug, and then try to smooth it out. It still smells faintly of garlic and ale. You reach under the floorboard of your little room for the box of beauty aids. Calling it that is like calling a rock a pillow. Inside, a stub of red pigment for your cheeks, a clump of white lead paste to lighten your face, and a toothpick you use to scratch off the fleas. Medieval glam. You smear the red across your cheeks. The pigment is mixed with crushed beetles and dried wine. It flakes slightly, but gives you that flushed, feverish look that some drunk customers think is alluring. The white paste? That's a mistake waiting to happen. It cracks when you smile and poisons you slowly. You dab on just enough to look pale and not enough to drop dead. Hopefully. You tie a ribbon around your hair, a frayed piece of blue linen, once vibrant, and tuck a small wooden comb into the side. It's decorative. Kind of. Okay, it mostly keeps lice from spreading to your eyebrows. Again. As you step outside, the town is already stirring. Vendors shout over one another, chickens flap across the road, and a dog chases a small child with a ham bone. Somewhere nearby, a bell tolls. Matins, maybe. Or maybe someone just died. Hard to say. People stare at you as you pass, and not kindly. You're marked in ways beyond your clothing. You walk differently. You stand differently. And everyone knows it. Some men leer. Some women sneer. One old man crosses himself and spits toward your feet. You pretend not to care. You've learned to keep your shoulders back, chin up, an expression somewhere between bored and blank. But inside, it stings. You pass by a group of washerwomen gossiping at the well. Their eyes narrow as you approach, and their whispers shift into hisses. That one murmurs. She's the reason my Tommy caught the itch. Which, another adds. Or worse. Experts still debate whether medieval harlots were truly considered outside the protection of the law, or merely socially tolerated so long as they stayed in their place. Some towns registered them officially, even taxed them. Others punished them with exile, flogging, or forced labour. The rules changed with the wind, and enforcement was often cruelly arbitrary. You pass a beggar girl, thin, barefoot, no more than 12. She watches you without blinking, hollow-eyed and curious. Maybe wondering what you did wrong to end up like this. Maybe wondering what she'll have to do soon. There's a lull in the wind. You pause. A man across the street stares at you too long. You recognise him, not by name, but by his belt, and the way his teeth click when he talks. You wave, weakly. He grunts. Not a client, not today. You reach your usual spot near the cobbler's shop. He hates you loitering here, but it's where the shadow falls during the hot hours, and it's where the local men know to find you. No one stops today. Not yet. Just a boy on a cart who flicks a bit of dung toward your foot and laughs when it hits. You bend down, wipe it off, and sigh. And you wonder, will today be slow? Will it be rough? Or will it be one of those days where nobody touches you, but you still feel used by nightfall? You glance at the sky, grey again, just like everything else. Whisper 1 in the comments below if this tale charms your heart, or 2 if it sends shivers down your spine. You don't sit. The ground's too wet, and the last time you did, you stood up with a slug attached to your skirt. So you lean instead, shoulder against the worn timber post of the cobbler's awning, arms crossed, eyes half lidded in that careful, practiced way that says, I'm available, but you'll have to work for it. Not that anyone's working too hard today. They glance, they pass. A few nod. One waves, awkwardly, then pretends he didn't. It's still early. You're not the only one out here trying to earn your next loaf. Marjorie's already across the square, perched on a barrel with her legs crossed like a barmaid in a morality play. Her bodice is tighter than yours, somehow still holding together after what must be the 50th restitch, and her expression is all confidence. You envy her, a little, not because of her figure or her clientele, but because she can still laugh with her teeth showing. You've learned to keep your lips closed when you smile. It hides the chip in your front tooth, the one you got last winter slipping on a frozen fish head. From around the corner, a baker's boy comes trudging through with a basket of rolls. Your stomach groans again. It has the nerve to sound hopeful. You squint at the bread, still steaming, glorious. But the boy sees your look and hugs the basket closer, muttering something under his breath. You make a mental note to flirt with him tomorrow. Maybe he'll drop a roll by accident next time. A bell rings down the street. Not church bells. Number this is thinner, more metallic. One of those little handbells carried by a town crier or some vendor of dubious liquids. You brace. Last week it was a man shouting about an elixir that cured pox and gout and toothaches. He made a fortune, then vanished, and half the women who bought his potion were vomiting blue for days. Today, though, it's something more familiar. Ribbons and combs, lace for your lasses, pins for your pleasures. The travelling peddler. He's old, smells like vinegar, and has hands permanently dyed from whatever concoctions he rubs into the cloth. He gives you a wink as he passes. Got something for you, love, he says with a grin, pulling out a yellowed ribbon. Half price. You raise an eyebrow. Quarter price. Still no reaction. Fine, he huffs, tossing it at your feet. First one's free. You'll owe me next time. You pick up the ribbon. It's greasy and smells faintly of fish oil, but it's cleaner than what's in your hair. Score. You watch him disappear around the bend. As you tuck the ribbon into your pocket, you hear a high, nasal voice call out behind you. Well, well. Look who's up before noon for once. You turn. Agnes. You and she used to be friends, sort of. The kind of friendship that grows out of shared desperation and mouldy bread. But somewhere along the way, she found a better patron. Now she walks with a sassy sway and wears sleeves that actually match. A luxury. Morning, Aggie, you say flatly. She snorts. Don't get comfortable in my corner. I'm not. I prefer this slime patch. She smirks, gives you a once-over and walks on. You roll your eyes behind her back and resume your lean. A few minutes later, your first potential client of the day strolls by. A man in a leather apron, blackened hands, soot on his neck. Probably a farrier or smith. He glances your way. You nod. He hesitates, then keeps walking. Figures. They want what you offer, but not when people are looking. That's how it goes. You're both invisible and too visible, depending on who's watching. Some historians argue that medieval harlots occasionally had surprising autonomy. Certain city ordinances even allowed them specific areas of trade, and in rare cases freedom from certain taxes, though enforcement varied wildly. Others counter that any momentary gain was always under threat, because all it took was one accusation to undo everything. You scan the square again. A chicken wanders by, pecking at the mud with admirable optimism. You sigh. Another slow day. You shuffle a few steps to the side to avoid a horse dropping. The sun's just barely starting to break through the clouds, casting pale light over the rooftops. And then, movement. You spot him. Not a regular, not quite a stranger. He's young, maybe 17. Clean by medieval standards, with hair that looks like it's seen soap this week. He's pretending not to look at you. He's very bad at it. You tilt your head, subtly. He flinches, approaches, then stops 3 paces away. He says nothing. You say nothing. Finally he stammers, how much? Ah, first timer. You give him a slow smile, the kind that doesn't reach your eyes but hints at secrets anyway. For you? You purr. 2 pence. His eyes widen. That's a lot for a lad with nervous knees and no beard. You shrug. Or a hot pie. I'm flexible. He looks down at the bag slung over his shoulder, pulls something out, a meat hand pie wrapped in cloth. You take it, peel it open, sniff it. Steam curls up. Real meat. No bugs, no visible mould. Possibly mutton. It's yours now, and so is he. You lead him down a side alley, the one that bends near the cooper's shed and always smells like tar and old beer. His footsteps echo behind you, hesitant, too loud. You glance back and give him a quick wink, mostly to keep him from turning and running. He nearly trips over a broken pail. It's not romantic. You're not strolling under moonlight or walking through a field of wildflowers. You're trying to get this over with before someone from the baker's family spots you and chases you off again. You've already been warned twice this week. The young man, boy really, keeps looking round like someone's going to jump out and shout "Sinner!" His face is flushed, hands twitching like he doesn't know what to do with them. He probably thinks this is how manhood begins, or ends. Either way, you feel more like a street tutor than a temptress. You stop in the shadow of the tanner's wall, where the bricks are warm from the sun, and the smell of leather nearly masks everything else. It's one of your usual spots. No one really wants to hang around a tannery anyway. He opens his mouth to speak, maybe to ask if there's, a process, but you hush him with a look. Business is business. Emotions make it messy. You don't bother with flirtation. He's nervous enough. You take the pie and set it on a cleanish bit of stone nearby, mentally dividing it into breakfast, lunch, and possibly dinner. He watches you, uncertain. Eventually he fumbles a coin from his pouch and holds it out to you like a cursed relic. You take it, even though you already agreed on the pie. He probably doesn't understand how trades work yet. You'll let him overpay. He'll feel virtuous. As you lean in to whisper something comforting, scripted but gentle, a loud voice barks from behind you. Oi! Not here, you don't. You both freeze. It's old Mags, the fishwife who lives 3 doors down and has an uncanny talent for interrupting at exactly the wrong moment. She's holding a broom and glaring like the alley is hers by divine right. You want to make your coin, do it near the dung heap like everyone else. You sigh and grab the pie. The boy stammers, I didn't. Mags isn't listening. She's already muttering about sin and syphilis and brandishing the broom like a holy relic. You grab your poor client by the sleeve and steer him in the other direction, toward the mill house. Privacy comes in patches here. Eventually you find a quieter nook. The boy's now red as a beet and trembling like a leaf. You do your best to be gentle. You speak softly. Guide the moment. Keep it brief, tidy, transactional. And afterward you wipe your hands on your skirt and offer him the same crooked smile you've given 100 times before. He mumbles thanks. You nod. He walks off, still glowing with confused pride. You lean back against the mill wall and breathe, not from exertion, from the sheer effort of pretending you don't exist for a few minutes. Across the stream, a couple of nuns walk by, veils fluttering in the breeze. They don't see you, or maybe they do and choose not to. That's fine. You've stopped expecting blessings from anyone who prays for a living. Now that your morning work is done, you sit on the mossy stone and pull the pie into your lap. You eat it slowly. The crust is dense but flaky enough to feel like luxury. The meat inside is salty, well cooked, probably lamb. You let each bite linger. It might be the best thing you taste all week. As you chew, you watch a heron stalk the shallows. It moves with a grace you envy, poised, patient, elegant. You wonder what it would be like to fly away. Maybe not far, just far enough to not be recognised. A village over, a market town, a place where nobody calls you girl like it's an insult. But then again, even birds return to the same nest, don't they? There's a soft creek nearby, and you look up to see another woman settling onto a log. She's older than you, mid-30s maybe, which makes her a matriarch in your line of work. Her face is sharp, lined in places, but not unkind. She nods toward your pie. Good trade? You nod. First in days. She chuckles. You're doing better than me then. You share a bit of crust with her. She accepts it like you've offered her gold. Together you sit in silence, watching the water and the heron and the way the sunlight reflects off a broken wheel downstream. And for a few quiet minutes, you're not a harlot. You're just two women, sharing food beside a stream, ignoring the weight of the world. Tap 3 in the comments below if this story makes you smile, or 4 if it leaves you chilled. The pie doesn't last long, of course. 3 bites, maybe 4, and your stomach's already plotting its next mutiny. Hunger's a background hum you've grown used to, like the buzz of flies, or the way your name turns sour when shouted by someone in authority. You dust off your skirt and rise. The older woman gives you a nod, then disappears down the path that winds past the mill house. You don't know her name. You probably never will. In your world, familiarity is dangerous. It makes it harder when someone vanishes. You take the long way back into town, slipping through the side lane that runs behind the cobbler's shop. There's a smell in the air, boiled leather and fresh dung, and it sticks to your hair like smoke. You tug the borrowed ribbon tighter in your braid and keep walking. By midday, the town is buzzing. The square's alive with shouting vendors, cranky goats, children dodging between carts, and the constant clatter of wheels on cobblestones. You keep your head down. The sun is higher now, baking the muck and waste into something truly special. There's no escaping it. The smells, the heat, the way your skin itches beneath your kirtle. You'd kill for a proper wash, but the town bathhouse charges more than you earn today. Still, you're tempted. Your armpits smell like cooked cabbage and shame. Not your best blend. You turn a corner and there it is, the public bathhouse. A squat stone building with a crooked chimney and steam rising like a beacon. 2 men exit laughing, shirts half-laced, hair damp. One slaps the other on the back, and they part with a knowing grin. You know that look. You've seen it 100 times. You step inside, blinking as the mist hits you. The heat wraps around you instantly, thick and smothering. Your lungs feel like they're inhaling soup. The room is dim, lit by low lanterns and the dull glint of brass basins. A woman at the front desk squints at you. 2 pence, she grunts. You hesitate. You think of the coin the boy gave you earlier. You could save it. But your skin is crawling with sweat and last week's grime. You reach into your pocket, fish out the coin and slide it across the counter. She nods and points to the left. The changing room, if you can call it that, is just a row of pegs and a worn bench. You strip quickly, folding your clothes into something resembling a bundle, and slip into the hot water. You brace for the sting, but it still surprises you. Every scrape, every flea bite, every bruise screams as the heat sinks in, and then relief. You slide lower, water up to your chin, and let your eyes drift closed. It's quiet, except for the occasional splash and the soft murmur of women chatting nearby. You catch snatches of conversation, a baby who won't stop crying, a husband caught with the baker's wife, someone's daughter getting her first moon. You don't speak, you just listen. A mainstream historical fact? Well, here's one. Bathhouses in the Middle Ages were more common than many think, especially in towns. They were places for cleaning, yes, but also for gossip, for socialising, and occasionally for negotiating more private exchanges. They blurred the line between hygiene and intimacy. And here's your fringe fact for the day. In some places, bathhouse attendants sold herbal sachets, bags of dried lavender, rosemary, and even bits of crushed beetle to mask body odour and cleanse the aura. Whether they worked or just gave the illusion of cleanliness is still up for debate. You scrub your arms with a borrowed cloth, wincing as you find a welt you didn't know you had. Under your fingernails, grit clings stubbornly. You scrape it out with the corner of a wood-handled brush and try not to think about where the brush has been. A voice calls out your number. Time's up. You drag yourself out, towel off with something the texture of sandpaper, and wriggle back into your still damp clothes. Somehow, you feel both cleaner and filthier at once. Back outside, the sun's moved west. You're not sure what time it is. The bells have rung twice since you entered town earlier. That means it's either prime hour or vespers. Hard to say. You check your shadow on the stones. It's long again. You head toward the little alley where you stash your things. On the way, you pass by a line of stalls selling everything from wax tablets to dried herring. A woman calls out, waving a bundle of herbs. Protection charms, lavender and angelica, keeps the spirits out and the boils away. You raise an eyebrow. The smell's nice, though. Scholars remain divided on whether these herbal talismans were seen as genuine medicine or just folk magic. Some say they were used more for comfort than for health. Others claim they held spiritual significance, especially for women in your profession, where protection was always a question of inches. You consider buying one, but your pockets are empty. Back to work then. You reach your alley, no one's waiting. Just a puddle, a dead rat, and a piece of broken pottery you almost trip over. You settle onto a crate and stretch your legs. Your hair's still damp, your stomach still growls. But for the moment you're clean, and that's something. You rest your head back, eyes closed, breathing in the smell of wood smoke and stale ale. And you wait for the next soul to wander past. The air cools as the afternoon wanes. Sunlight slants between the crooked eaves like golden fingers, poking through smoke and chimney dust, illuminating the alley just enough to show you how filthy it really is. A puddle glints beside your boot, reflecting the soft shapes of clouds drifting far above a world that has never once bothered to look down. You lean back against the crate, legs stretched, eyes half closed, playing a game you invented months ago. Guess the smell. Today's bouquet seems to include rotting leek, horse urine, candle wax, and a hint of someone's forgotten laundry. A touch of something sweet. Mead, maybe, or someone's sticky fingers. A shadow moves. You open one eye. A man approaches. Ah, him, the landlord. Technically, he owns the crumbling structure you sleep in, and the adjoining 3 rooms that might generously be described as rentable. In practice, he's a walking mould stain with boots too nice for his character, and a laugh that makes milk curdle. "Afternoon, Dove," he says, grinning like a fox who's just remembered where he buried a chicken. You say nothing. "I believe we're due a little arrangement today." He wiggles his eyebrows like he thinks they're charming. "Rent, you see. Roofs don't patch themselves." You know this conversation. You know the script. You could recite it in your sleep. You probably have. "I gave you my coin," you lie. "Last week." He chuckles, low and smooth. "Did you? Must have slipped into the sewer then, like everything else." He steps closer. You flinch inwardly, but don't show it. This game is half about timing, half about not showing fear. "You know," he adds, tapping your chin with one filthy fingertip, "I could be persuaded to accept a different sort of payment." You look away. Behind him, a cat leaps from a window ledge and lands in a basket. A baby shrieks somewhere nearby. Life goes on. You consider your options. There are always options, technically. You could yell, you could run, you could plead with the innkeeper who pretends she doesn't know you exist. Or you could do what you've done before. Buy time. "I'll have it tonight," you say quietly. "Let me work." He eyes you, then shrugs. "Don't be late, girl. I'd hate to see you sleep on cobbles." He disappears around the corner, and you exhale the breath you didn't realise you'd been holding. Mainstream history might not record this part of town life in many polite chronicles, but it's there, between the lines, in the implied silences. Many women like you had arrangements with landlords, tradesmen, or even clergy. Not official, never documented, but utterly expected. There's still debate among scholars as to how frequently harassment of this kind occurred versus genuine negotiation. Some argue there were charters in certain cities that offered legal protections. Others insist such protections were meaningless in practice. What mattered wasn't the law, it was who would enforce it. And in your world, no one's enforcing anything. You stand, brush your skirt, and shake out the last scraps of hesitation. It's not personal, it's survival. There's no room for dignity when the alternative is starvation. The sun has dipped low enough that the alley lies mostly in shadow. You step out, back into the square, head toward the west corner where the taverns begin to stir with evening energy. A tavern is not a home, it's not safe, and it's not clean. But it's warm, loud, and busy. Invisibility comes easier when everyone else is shouting. The Crooked Cup is one of the better-known spots. If by better known you mean less likely to end in stabbing. You slide inside, past the curtain of old wool that serves as a door, and the din hits you like a bucket. Laughter, mugs clinking, a lute playing out of tune in the corner. A woman with braided hair and a missing front tooth juggles tankards. The innkeeper bellows something about unpaid tabs. You drift to a bench near the hearth and let the heat soak into your bones. It smells like stew and feet. Not ideal, but better than alley mould. A man at the bar turns. He sees you. Not a regular, but familiar. Grey in his beard, sour in his expression. A cooper, maybe, or a brewer. Someone who's worked with wood and doesn't mind splinters. He approaches. No words at first. Just a long look. Then, gruffly, "You free?" You nod once. He jerks his head toward the back door. Outside. Again. Always outside. You follow him into the little courtyard where ale barrels are stacked like sleeping pigs. He doesn't talk. Doesn't even look at you. He just waits. And so, you do what you do. Afterward, he hands you half a loaf of bread and a copper coin. You don't ask for more. You return to the square as twilight seeps in, arms wrapped tight around yourself. Not from cold, but from everything else. And you wonder, not for the first time, what it would feel like to be safe in your own bed. You sit on the edge of the dry fountain in the town square, letting your feet dangle over the cracked stone basin. The well itself dried up years ago, long before you arrived. Now it's mostly a place for pigeons, gossips, and those like you who need to rest their legs without being too obvious about it. Your breath fogs faintly in the evening chill. The sun has ducked behind the thatched roofs, and the sky wears that muddy medieval purple-grey that comes just before dark. Candles flicker in windows. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys. Somewhere, someone is singing off-key. Probably the brewer's daughter, who fancies herself a bard after 2 mugs of mead. You're about to close your eyes when a soft thunk hits the back of your head. You blink. Turn. A half-rotten apple lies on the stone behind you, oozing lightly. A child runs off giggling. You don't even bother shouting. That would take energy. Instead, you wipe the apple juice from your hair and look up just in time to see a familiar face. Marjorie again. She's striding across the square, hips swinging, expression triumphant. She sees you, smirks, then holds up something in her hand. A heel of cheese, bright yellow, soft around the edges. A good one. You raise an eyebrow. She mouths, "Baron's Clark," then vanishes into the alley near the livery stable. Show off. The cheese would have been nice. You stand, stretch, and head toward the old fishmonger's stall, now abandoned and stinking faintly of salt and ghosts. It's one of your safer evening haunts. Behind it is a nook between buildings, shielded from view, mostly dry and blessedly empty. You duck in and settle your things, if you can call them that. A wrap, a cloth pouch with a few crumbs, and your last clean scrap of linen. As you arrange your bundle, you hear footsteps approaching. Not quick, not aggressive, but heavy, deliberate. You peer around the edge of the stall. It's Tomlin. Oh, joy. Tomlin is difficult. A former soldier with a taste for ale, stories, and long philosophical complaints about the state of the town's paving stones. He pays, usually, and he never hits. But he talks. So much talking. You brace. "Evening, lass," he says, trying to sound casual as he leans against the fish stall and pretends you haven't seen this scene play out 20 times already. "Busy tonight?" You nod toward the alley. "Thinking about retiring early," he chuckles. "Well, now that'd be a pity. I was hoping to see you." You sigh, very softly. "Coin?" He digs into his belt pouch and drops 2 small coppers into your hand. Not much, but enough. You motion with your head, and the 2 of you walk the short distance to the back wall near the coopers, where a low stack of firewood provides just enough privacy for what passes as intimacy. While you're trying to focus on the usual necessities, he starts in. "You ever think about leaving this town?" he asks suddenly. "Going somewhere quiet, maybe farming?" You blink, not at the question. Clients say odd things all the time, but at the earnestness in his voice. You offer a non-committal hum. "I mean it," he says. "I've got cousins near the coast, could be nice." "Could be," you say, adjusting your skirt. The truth is, you have thought about leaving. Everyone in your profession has. Running away to a village where nobody knows your name, pretending to be a widow or a healer or a seamstress, starting over. But starting over requires something you've never had. A clean slate and enough coin to get somewhere beyond walking distance. There are historical records, scattered, inconsistent, of women like you, vanishing from town rolls and reappearing under different names in new villages. Some scholars argue these were deliberate reinventions. Others suggest they were simply lost to time, buried in ditches, forgotten in ledgers, or consumed by the quiet anonymity of countryside survival. Either way, your odds aren't great. Tomlin is still talking. Something about chickens. You nod at intervals, responding with vague interest. Eventually he finishes, both the story and the business, and straightens his tunic with a satisfied sigh. "You're a good listener," he says, tossing a final copper your way. "Better than my wife ever was." You resist the urge to say maybe because your wife's heard that chicken story 600 times. Instead, you smile. "Take care, Tomlin." He shuffles off, humming. You slip the coins into your pouch and settle back on your haunches. Your legs ache, your lower back is plotting rebellion, and your stomach, despite the pie earlier, has resumed its usual complaints. You reach into your bundle, pull out the hard crust left from 2 nights ago and gnaw at it. It tastes like charcoal and regret. Still, it's food. The wind picks up. You wrap the cloth tighter around your shoulders and watch as a drunk stumbles across the square, singing something that might once have been a hymn. A dog barks from the tavern door, chasing away a rat the size of a kitten. You lean your head against the wall and close your eyes, just for a moment. You don't sleep. Not yet. But you pretend. And for now, that's close enough. The night deepens, and the town settles into a new rhythm, one defined less by the bustle of trade and more by the clinking of tankards, the creak of shutters swinging closed, and the quiet muttering of secrets shared under cover of dark. For you, this is a shift change of sorts. The daytime leering and mockery fade, replaced by an altogether different kind of attention. Men in cloaks wander the alleys now, their steps louder than they think, their intentions quieter than they'll ever admit. This is when your work becomes more lucrative and more dangerous. In the daytime, judgment is loud. In the night-time, judgment wears perfume and forgets your name. You rise from your nook near the fish stall, joints stiff, head aching. You stretch your neck until it pops, then pull the ribbon from your hair and retie it in a looser knot. Appearances matter at night more than they should. The lighting is forgiving, sure, but some men still prefer their illusions well-dressed. You check the alley behind the mason's yard, one of your usual evening spots. It's already occupied by Rosalind, the newest girl in town. She's maybe 15, maybe 16, and still believes compliments are gifts, not bait. "Evening," she chirps, brushing crumbs from her apron. "Busy night?" "Not yet," you murmur. "Careful with that one behind the butcher's." He bites. She giggles. "Kinky." You shake your head. She'll learn, hopefully not the hard way. There's a rustling near the tannery. You turn and see a man you've never seen before. A stranger in a wide-brimmed hat, face-shadowed, coat too clean for this part of town. He's looking at you, not leering, just watching. You meet his gaze. He tips his hat slightly. You nod, wary. He walks away. Not all danger wears noise. The truth is, even the best harlots kept a mental ledger, not just of clients, but of those who watched too closely, too silently. Some of the worst harm didn't come from drunken brutes. It came from those who smiled gently first. Historical records show that while urban harlotry was tolerated in some regions, women in your position were also frequent victims of unexplained deaths, found in wells, on riverbanks, in ditches. Some were written off as suicides, others as accidents. The jury's still out on how many of those were quietly convenient. Back in the square, the lamplighters are making their rounds. They light the sconces with practiced hands, their long poles swaying like reeds in the dusk. You always found it odd. How a town so proud of keeping its streets lit offered so little light to the women who lived in its shadows. The lamp near the apothecary flickers. A sign? Or just old oil? You take that as your cue and move down toward the lower quarter, the part of town near the grain stores and pig pens. It's smellier, darker, but quieter. Less competition too. As you round the corner you hear raised voices. 2 men, clearly drunk, arguing about whose horse is faster or whose boots are better. You slip into the shadows and wait. No point in being caught between boasts. They'll tire themselves out soon enough. Sure enough, one stumbles, the other laughs, and they stagger off toward the tavern arm in arm. You step back into the open, shaking your head. Men. The stars are out now. Not many, but enough. You glance up and spot Orion the hunter. You always liked that one. Not because of the story, but because no matter how bad the night, he always seemed to be watching. Constant. Detached. Safe. You're about to find another post when a voice murmurs behind you. "Evening, love. Fancy some company?" You turn. It's Garrett, local potter, middle-aged, always smells faintly of ash and vinegar, usually harmless. You nod and walk with him to the alley behind the baker's oven. Warm bricks, soft ash on the ground, decent privacy. He says little, pays quick, no fuss, you appreciate that. Afterwards, as you adjust your bodice and brush soot from your skirt, he says, "You ever think about changing trades?" You blink. To what? He shrugs. I don't know. Washerwoman, alewife. Something with less traffic. You laugh dryly. Alewives get groped just as much, and washerwomen die younger. He nods slowly. Still, you've got something. Wit, maybe. You arch a brow. Wit doesn't buy bread. He offers a copper, extra. You nod in thanks. He walks off. You remain seated, letting the warmth of the bricks soak through your back. You're tired. Not just in your limbs, but in your bones, in that deep down marrow place where exhaustion turns into silence. Another hour, maybe 2, and then you can crawl back to your mat, curl up, and pretend to dream, but not yet. Now you straighten your spine, fix your ribbon, and wait once more. Someone else will come. They always do. You head north toward the edge of the market square where the torchlight thins and the shadows grow bolder. This part of town has fewer doors and more fences, rickety wood slats leaning like drunks against one another, enclosing tiny gardens mostly full of weeds, chickens, or both. Here the ground softens underfoot, trampled into thick mud from carts and boots and centuries of spilled chamber pots. You pause beneath the overhang of an old cooper's shed, where the barrel staves hang like broken ribs and the air smells of resin and rot. It's quiet here, eerily so. You're about to move on when you hear footsteps again. Slow, purposeful, not hurried, but not drunk either. He emerges from the darkness, backlit by a lantern swinging from a nail. A town constable. Wonderful. He's not in uniform, not that they're all that formal these days. Just a dark cloak, boots too polished for a man who claims to serve the people, and the smug set of someone who knows the law bends for him like reeds in wind. You recognize him. Of course you do. Everyone does. He walks like a man with nowhere to be and nothing to fear. Evening, he says with a drawl, stopping just close enough that you can smell the bitter tang of ale on his breath. You nod, cautious. Constable. You working? He asks, like it's small talk, like he's asking if you've seen the weather. Trying, he chuckles. That's so. Looks slow tonight. You shrug. He leans in slightly. Thing is, there's been complaints. Neighbours saying you and the others are making a spectacle. Disturbing the peace, you know. You wait. And yet, he continues, letting the words draw out like syrup. I don't see any fines paid this week. No licences updated. Funny that. There it is. He's not here to enforce anything. He's here to collect. You sigh inwardly and reach for your pouch. He eyes it with mild amusement, the way a man might watch a cat chase a fly. You place a copper into his gloved palm. He tuts. Come now, surely you can do better than that. You glare at him, just briefly, then fumble for a second coin. He smiles, not kindly. You know, he says, some towns have brothels run by the church. Imagine that. Holy harlotry. He chuckles at his own joke. Safer, cleaner, regulated. Also forbidden, you mutter. Only here, he shrugs. But elsewhere, the clergy figured if sin's going to happen, it might as well be taxable. He's not wrong. Historically, several European towns did legalise and manage brothels under municipal or ecclesiastical oversight. Some even required regular medical checks and issued coloured garments so everyone knew who was who. Experts still debate whether this system offered real protection or simply sanitised exploitation for the sake of public order. You wonder how different your life might be if someone had handed you a red hood and a weekly wage instead of a cot stuffed with straw and silence. The constable pockets the coin and turns to go, then glances back. Take care, girl. Winter's coming. Wouldn't want you to catch cold. Or worse. With that cryptic kindness, he vanishes into the night. You exhale. Slowly. Your fingers are still clenched, your jaw tight. It's not the first time. It won't be the last. You move on. Past the well where someone's left a broken bucket. Past the tavern's back door where a dog rummages through discarded bones. Past the stall where a girl once sold ribbons. Now empty. Shuttered, forgotten. You make your way toward the churchyard. It's not your usual haunt, but you're out of options. The square's too loud, the alley's too full, the corner's all taken. But here, ironically near the dead, there's space. You walk along the low wall where moss clings between stones and the iron gate creaks faintly in the wind. A lantern hangs from a crooked pole, casting just enough light to show the outline of gravestones and overgrown grass. You find a spot beside the gatehouse, out of sight, but still near enough to run if needed. You sit on the low wall, rubbing your arms for warmth, watching the flicker of candlelight through the stained glass of the chapel. Inside, you imagine some poor friar reciting evening prayers. You wonder if he knows who waits just outside. Probably. They always know. They just don't say. Some say harlots weren't allowed to receive confession unless they repented and renounced their work. Others argue that priests more often than not turned a blind eye, sometimes quite literally, when the penitent was also their client. Your back aches. You stretch it gently, careful not to strain too far. A bell rings in the distance. It's late now, later than you usually stay out. Still no more clients. You pull your wrap tighter around your shoulders and rest your head against the stone. The graveyard's not peaceful exactly, but at least here, no one's asking you for anything. For a moment, you imagine lying beneath the earth instead of on top of it. Just silence. No smells, no stares, no bruises, no bargains. But then the wind picks up, and your teeth chatter, and you remember you're not done yet. Not tonight. The wind grows teeth as the church bell tolls once, twice. Midnight is near. You huddle tighter in your wrap, shifting your weight to ease the pressure on your left hip, which has long since gone numb from sitting on cold stone. Sleep presses at your temples like a child tugging at your sleeve, but you resist. Out here, falling asleep isn't restful, it's risky. The graveyard gate creaks gently behind you. Not open, just shifting in the wind. Still, you glance back. Once, a man had followed you into this space thinking the dead couldn't bear witness. You'd made it out, but the scar behind your ear hums every time you hear that gate move. The lantern above you flickers. You consider heading back toward the square. Maybe someone still lingers near the taverns, or maybe not. You weigh the hunger in your belly against the ache in your spine, a familiar calculation. Most nights, hunger wins. You're about to stand when something small and wet hits your forehead. Rain! Of course! It begins with a gentle pattering, soft as feathers. Within minutes, the heavens open with the slow confidence of a storm that has nowhere else to be. You scramble for shelter, dashing to the overhang of the sexton's shed. Water drips from the thatched roof and soaks your hem in seconds. You shiver. The kind that starts in your bones and works outward, leaving your skin prickled and your hands dumb. Your kirtle clings to you, heavy as shame. Rain is bad for business. No one wants to fumble in a puddle. No one pays extra for goosebumps. You sigh, slumping against the wall, letting the rhythm of the storm lull you into a light daze. Around you, the world grows blurry, muffled. The town becomes a watercolour. Grey buildings, darker skies, orange flickers from shuttered windows. That's when you see her. A girl, maybe 10 years old, darting through the alley beyond the fence. Barefoot, hair plastered to her face, arms wrapped around something in cloth. She stops under the bakery awning, unwraps the bundle, a kitten, you think, and huddles beside it, trying to shield it from the storm. Your breath catches. She's not crying. She's too far past tears for that. Just quiet, still, determined. You wonder how long she's been alone. You wonder if someone waits for her. You wonder if this is her first night in the rain, or her 20th. And you wonder if you'll see her again in a year or two, wearing your borrowed ribbon, waiting in your alley. Your throat tightens, and you force yourself to look away. Fun historical tidbit. It's estimated that nearly a third of women in certain medieval cities engaged in sex work at some point in their lives, not always as a profession, but as a temporary means of survival. Widowhood, abandonment, hunger, they didn't come with instruction manuals, just consequences. The girl and the kitten vanish into the dark. You close your eyes and lean your head against the damp wall. Water trickles down your cheek. Rain. Or maybe something else. Hard to tell. There's a scuffling sound to your left. You jolt upright. Instinct always, but it's just a dog. Thin, brown, ribs like piano keys. It pauses to sniff the air, then trots off, nose to the ground. You've become part of the background now, just another shape in the shadows. Unremarkable, unnoticed, safer that way. Eventually the rain softens. The clouds begin to break like wet parchment. Stars peek through in ragged patches, and the wind carries the scent of clean earth and ash. You emerge from your shelter, skirt sodden, hair dripping. Your toes squish with every step. But the square is glowing now, wet stones reflecting lamplight like gold coins. Everything shines, even the filth, and that's when you spot him. a noble, or close enough. He's wearing a cloak of wool so fine it practically hums. His boots are polished. His hat, yes, a hat, not a hood, is trimmed with fur. He smells of cloves and lavender, and most importantly, he's drunk. He's leaning against the statue near the well, trying to light a candle stub with fingers that clearly aren't cooperating. He sees you, smiles. "Well then," he slurs, "a vision in grey." You blink. "Not many visions smell like alley water." He laughs, a low amused sound that carries surprisingly well in the damp air. "I like your honesty," he says. "How much?" You name a number, double your usual. He doesn't blink. He gestures vaguely. You lead him to the covered arcade near the Merchant Guild Hall. Dry, secluded, and out of view from the main road. He wants to talk. They always do, once they think you're clever. He tells you about a poem he's writing, about a lost love, about a horse he almost bought. You nod, murmur appropriately, feign fascination. And when he's done, he gives you a silver coin. You try not to gasp. You thank him. He walks away, humming something tuneless. You stare at the silver in your palm until your hand goes numb. It's enough for bread, soap, and maybe, just maybe, a place with a roof for a week. The rain's stopped completely now. You breathe. And for a moment you feel like maybe the night didn't win. You don't go straight back to the alley. You walk instead, slowly, savouring the quiet clink of the silver coin in your hand, as if it might vanish if you look away. It's heavier than your usual copper, smoother, real. You've only ever held one once before, briefly, before trading it for a pair of boots that didn't fit, and bread that turned mouldy in a day. Now here it is again, sitting in your palm like a promise, or maybe a test. You pass a shuttered bakery, its window still warm. Your stomach growls. You don't stop. You pass the tanner's yard. A dog barks once from within, then is silenced by a sharp whistle. You move on. Eventually your steps carry you toward the rows of stalls near the guild hall. Most are closed now, their goods packed away, their counters empty. But one, miraculously, remains open. A woman with a lantern and a crate of old loaves. She's sweeping, humming a lullaby under her breath. You hesitate, then approach. She looks up, eyes narrowing with suspicion, until she sees the coin. "Not counterfeit?" she asks, wiping her hands on her apron. You show it to her. She bites it, nods. You point to the basket. She hands you 2 round loaves, one of them still slightly warm, and a bundle of dried figs wrapped in cloth. You blink at the figs. She shrugs. "Too many to store, and you look like you need something sweet." You nod slowly, unsure what to say. You don't say thank you, not out of pride, but because you're afraid the word will crack your voice. You clutch the bundle like treasure and step away, feet lighter than they've been all week. As you round the edge of the square, you hear music, faint, uneven. A fiddle, probably. Someone's bow dancing too fast, fingers fumbling just enough to keep it human. You follow the sound, drawn not by curiosity but by habit. Music means people. People mean coin, or danger, or both. You find the source outside the Bald Piglet, a tavern more floor than roof, where someone's dragged a stool into the mud and is sawing away at a fiddle like he's trying to wring its neck. A handful of onlookers laugh and clap. One of them is Agnes. She sees you, rolls her eyes, then surprisingly pats the bench beside her. You pause, you sit. She hands you a tankard, half full, lukewarm but real. You sip. Bitter ale, weak and watery. Still, it's something. "Silver, huh?" she murmurs without looking at you. You stiffen. "Relax. I saw him hand it over. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell the others." You glance at her. "Why not?" She shrugs. "Because maybe next time it'll be me." There's silence between you, comfortable, in that tired late-night way, the kind of silence that doesn't ask questions or expect answers. The fiddler finishes a tune and stumbles up. Another takes his place, tuning with a sigh. Around you the crowd shifts, thins. A few leave. One man starts snoring against a barrel. Agnes leans back, looking at the stars. "You ever think about doing something else?" she asks. You raise an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Don't know. Mending clothes, selling herbs, maybe being one of those old women who reads bones and makes up curses." You smile faintly. "I'm halfway there," she chuckles. "Same." The stars wheel above you, slow, endless, distant. You wonder if they watched over Rome, over Babylon, over women just like you 1,000 years ago, clutching crusts of bread under the same kind of sky. A fringe tidbit for your mental scrapbook. In some port towns, harlots used coded songs to communicate, little rhymes about bad clients, where to sleep, who to avoid. One line was whispered and the rest passed along like gossip wrapped in melody. Almost no one recorded the lyrics, of course. The songs lived and died on the tongues of women no one thought to listen to. Agnes taps your arm and nods toward a man wobbling his way across the square. He's yours if you want him. You glance over, drunk, limping slightly, smiling but not in a way that comforts. You weigh your options, your pouch is heavier than usual. Your belly's full, you have bread and figs and the ghost of ale on your lips. No, you murmur, not tonight. Agnes shrugs. Suit yourself. She stands, saunters off to intercept him. You stay seated on the bench, hands wrapped around your half-empty tankard, head tilted toward the heavens. The stars blink down like they're winking, or warning. You're not sure which. You don't remember leaving the bench, but somehow you're walking again, winding your way through the back lanes that spider out from the square. Your fingers trail along a crumbling wall, fingertips brushing damp moss and splinters, guiding you like a blind woman feeling for a door that might not be there. The bread is tucked beneath your arm, still warm as though it has its own heartbeat. The cloth bundle of figs swings gently from your wrist. The silver coin is hidden, buried so deep in your bodice you've already forgotten where you placed it. That's intentional. Treasure's easier to lose when you think about it too often. You cross the lane behind the chandlery and pass by the closed shutter of a shop that once sold combs and perfume. It burned last year. No one rebuilt it. The scent of charred wood still rises from the cracks in the beams. A place with a memory, even if no one bothers to remember. You pause beside a narrow alley you've avoided for weeks. That's where Daria disappeared. One day she was there, cheeks rouged, ribbon tied neat. The next, nothing. Just her wooden comb, cracked in half, left under the eaves. Some say she ran. Some say she was taken. Some say she fell in love with a soldier and followed him north. You don't say anything. You never did. That's how stories survive in your world. Not by being told, but by not being contradicted. There's a cough behind you. You turn, tense, but it's only a beggar wrapped in a patchwork blanket, nose red and skin pale as flour. He looks at you with a mix of reverence and resentment. Spare something, he croaks. You hesitate, then reach into your bundle and hand him the smaller of the 2 loaves. He stares at it, then at you, as if you've handed him the moon. Why? He asks. You don't answer. You just walk on. Giving feels strange, like you've cracked something open and let a part of yourself out. Maybe it's the silver. Maybe it's the bread. Maybe it's the fact that you said no earlier and no lightning struck. You find yourself near the city wall, the outer rim where houses lean like teeth knocked askew, and the wind whistles through them like a lullaby sung by ghosts. Here, the lamplighters don't bother. The only light comes from the moon, fractured through high clouds. You step around a sleeping dog and into the courtyard of a house that was once a blacksmith's. It still smells of soot and iron, but the forge is long cold. The woman who lives here rents out corners, literally corners, for girls who've run out of roof. She greets you at the door with a raised brow and a blanket around her shoulders. Coin? You nod and show her the silver. Her eyes widen. You rob a lord? You shake your head. Doesn't matter, she says. Corner's yours. Dry straw tonight. You follow her into the musty main room. It's silent save for the creaking beams and the soft breathing of 2 other women already curled in their claimed spaces, backs to the wall, eyes half shut. One opens an eye as you pass and then closes it again. You set your things down in the far corner beside a crack in the wall that lets in the faintest sliver of moonlight. You unwrap the figs and eat 2 slowly, letting the sweetness spread across your tongue like honeyed sunlight. You chew the seeds until your jaw aches. It tastes like something stolen from another life. Then the bread, half a loaf, eaten in silence carefully. You save the rest. You always do. There's a cup of water beside the hearth. You take a sip and sit, drawing your legs to your chest, letting the warmth from the fireless hearth wrap around you like memory. And that's when she enters, tall, cloaked, hood up. You can't see her face. The room shifts slightly, as if the air itself holds its breath. She speaks to the housekeeper in hushed tones, Coins change hands. Then she crosses the room, graceful, not hurried, and sits beside one of the women already on the floor. They speak quietly, like old friends, or old enemies. You catch only fragments. Not what we agreed. Dangerous if he finds out. You still have the paper, a pause, then, no one knows. Not yet. Your heart ticks faster. Not from fear, at least not the usual kind. From curiosity. From the sense that you've just overheard something too large for your life. They stand. The cloaked woman places something, paper maybe, into the other's hand. Then she's gone, melting into the night like smoke. You exhale. You've always known your world brushes up against another, one of secrets and whispers, of daggers beneath cloaks and names whispered only in the dark. You never expected it to enter the same room. But here you are. There's a flicker of power in that thought. A thrill, or a warning, maybe both. You wake before dawn, not because of noise, though there's always some, but because your body knows better than to sleep too long in unfamiliar places. The floor is cold, the straw beneath you damp in patches, and your left leg has gone numb again. You sit up slowly, careful not to jostle the others. One woman is curled in a tight ball beside the wall, her arm wrapped around her bundle of rags like it's a child. The other is snoring softly, a rhythmic puff, puff, puff that somehow manages to sound both exhausted and defiant. The fire never got lit. You wrap your shawl tighter around your shoulders and glance toward the door. A faint grey light is beginning to creep in through the cracks in the shutters, heralding the first fingers of morning. You check your bread. Still there. The figs are gone. Of course they are. But you don't feel angry. Hungry mouths will do what they must. You've done worse for less. You rise, rubbing your hands together to warm your fingers, and tiptoe past the others toward the wash basin near the hearth. It holds a puddle of yesterday's water, cloudy with ash and dust. You splash your face. It stings. The cold slides down your spine like a warning. You dry your face with your sleeve and step out into the street. The world is still in that hush between night and noise. No shouts yet, no hooves, no hammering. Just the steady drip-drip of gutter runoff and the occasional clatter of a rat knocking over a loose cobble. You walk with purpose now, your boots squelching faintly on the wet stones. You're headed toward the river, not for a client but for something stranger. You want to find the woman from last night, the one in the cloak. She wasn't from here. Her walk, her posture, it screamed authority in a way that wasn't born of this mud-crusted town. She was visiting, passing through. And you wonder what business a woman like that has with someone who sleeps on a floor and eats stolen figs. You reach the edge of the quay, where the fishing boats sit low in the tide and the river smells of brine and sewage and old stories. The sky is lightening now, soft oranges and blues bleeding into each other like crushed berries on a tablecloth. You spot someone you know, old Willem, who scrapes barnacles off the boats for coin and rumour. He's hunched over a pail, humming to himself. Willem, you call softly. He squints up at you. Ah, morning, sweetheart. You're up early. See a cloaked woman come through here last night? Tall, fine boots, alone. He cackles. You've just described half the devils and noblewomen in every tavern tale I've ever heard. You try again. Met with someone. Passed something over. He pauses, chewing on a bit of saltweed, then saw someone. Real quiet. Didn't take the ferry, just stood there, staring at the water for a while, then left upriver. You nod. Thanks. He spits into the river and mutters, Don't get too curious, girl. Curiosity's a fine way to end up in a sack. You walk upriver, boots slipping on the wet path. The trees thin as you go and the noise of town fades behind you. There's something calming about the way the water moves, constant, indifferent, swallowing secrets without comment. You reach a bend in the path where a tree leans precariously over the water, and there, beneath its roots, you find the imprint of feet. 2 sets, one small, one larger, a smear in the dirt where something was knelt on. Paper, gone now. You sigh. No woman, no clue, just footprints and questions. Scholars remain divided on whether women in your station ever acted as informants or messengers. Some claim it was common. Who better to overhear secrets than those men talk to with their trousers around their ankles? Others argue that's a romantic notion, and most women like you simply kept their heads down and tried not to be noticed. You're not sure what you believe, but you do know that last night you saw something real, and it wasn't about survival, it was about purpose. You head back toward town. By the time you return, the market is beginning to wake. Stalls creak open. Vendors yawn behind baskets of wilting cabbage and crates of salted fish. A goat bleats with unholy fervour from somewhere in the shadows. You pass Roslyn. She's combing her hair with fingers still raw from the cold, humming a tavern song about a sailor who lost his pants to a sea witch. She nods at you. Sleep? Some. You look not terrible. High praise. You settle back in your usual spot near the cobblers, pulling your knees to your chest and watching as the town stumbles into another day. Behind you, the shutters of the inn slam open. A bucket of something unspeakable splashes into the gutter. Another day, same streets. But inside you, something shifted. You're not sure what. Maybe it's the coin. Maybe it's the missing figs. Maybe it's the footprints beneath the tree. But something feels like a beginning. And in a life like yours, that's dangerous. You make yourself small in your usual corner by the cobbler's shop, pressing your back against the stone as the morning sun creeps across the square. It isn't warm, sunlight rarely is in spring, but it's brighter than most days, and that alone feels like a trick. Across the square, the baker is setting out trays of stale rolls. The same dog from last night, skinny, hopeful, cursed with a limp, snatches one and bolts. The baker shouts and throws a ladle, missing both the dog and his dignity. You smirk. Then remember you're supposed to be working. You shift your skirt, pull your shawl over your shoulders just so, and fix your expression into something between bored and available. Your body aches. Not just the usual dull protests of knees and hips and ankles, but the particular stiffness that comes from walking half the night in wet boots. You imagine you smell like damp wool, cheap soap and a touch of fig. Honestly, it's probably an improvement. A young man wanders past, face pink with sleep, hat askew, arms loaded with sacks of flour. He catches your eye, blushes, nearly drops the flour and stumbles away in a cloud of white dust. You chuckle softly, then you see him. He's back, the stranger from yesterday, the one with the wide-brimmed hat and the too-clean coat. He's across the square again, talking to a merchant, back turned to you. But that posture, you'd know it anywhere now, like a cat made of coin and quiet threats. You watch. He leans in. The merchant laughs too loud, then too suddenly. The stranger walks away and the merchant stands blinking as if something important just slipped through his fingers. You don't move, you don't call out, but your skin prickles. As he rounds the edge of the square, he glances over his shoulder. You're certain. He sees you. Then he disappears into the crowd. The cobbler steps out of his shop and groans at the sight of you. Not again, he mutters. Go rot somewhere else. Nice to see you too, you reply sweetly. He scowls. You lower the tone. I am the tone. Go lower it somewhere else. You stand with a dramatic sigh and shuffle to the edge of the square, claiming a spot between a crate of onions and a bucket of sand. Not your finest stage, but serviceable. A group of children play nearby, stick battles and rock wars. One swings too wide and nearly clocks his friend in the ear. They scream, they laugh, they run. You envy them their bruises. A priest walks by, robes fluttering, eyes forward. You nod politely. He doesn't see you, or pretends not to. Fun historical fact. The church often condemned harlotry in sermons, labelling it the gateway sin, but that didn't stop certain parishes from accepting discreet tithes in exchange for turning a blind eye. Experts still debate whether these arrangements were rare exceptions or the secret norm. You feel like a footnote in your own story. Roslyn joins you, smelling faintly of boiled cabbage and lavender. She has a bruise blooming on her jaw, half hidden by her hair. You all right? You ask. She shrugs. Client didn't want to pay. You glance at her. What did you do? Told him to rot, then stole his purse anyway. You can't help but grin. That's the spirit. She sits beside you, stretching her legs like a lady with nothing to prove. You share the last piece of bread, tearing it in half and handing her the bigger bit. She doesn't comment, just chews. The square continues its rhythm, carts creaking, bells tolling, someone shouting about onions. Life here is loud and dull and loud again. Then something quiet catches your attention. A whisper. You turn. A boy, barely taller than your waist, stands at the corner, clutching something, watching you. You beckon gently. He edges closer. In his hands, a folded piece of paper. Your breath stills. "Who gave you this?" you whisper. He shrugs. "Lady with a black scarf said it was for the grey-eyed girl." You blink. "That's not helpful." He grins toothily and runs off. You unfold the paper. It's not long. Tonight, Tannery Gate, wear red, come alone. M. Your heart does that strange slippery thing where it skips a beat but lands heavier. You fold the paper carefully, tuck it beneath your bodice, and stare into the crowd. Wear red. You haven't worn red in years, but you know where to find a ribbon. You sit back against the wall, eyes on the moving tapestry of townsfolk, mind drifting. What is this? A trap? A job? A test? You're not sure, but for the first time in a long while, you feel curious. Evening slouches across the sky like an old dog too tired to bark. You count the bells. 6, then 7. The town begins to shift again. Barrels rolled into place, shutters pulled closed, voices growing sharper with drink and fatigue. You sit still by the well, absently running your fingers through the frayed strands of the red ribbon. It's old, sure, faded in spots, but it's the brightest thing you own. When tied in your hair, it almost looks deliberate. Roslyn passes by with a limp, muttering something about cracked shoes and cracked men. You offer her a look. She just smirks and disappears into a side lane, humming an old tavern song about a man who drowned in soup. You don't eat dinner, not out of principle, but because you want your mind sharp and your belly quiet. There's something about the note that's gnawed at you all day. Less what it said, more what it didn't. No reason, no promise, no threat. Just a time, a place, and a letter. M. You keep your eyes on the shadows. Every passing figure becomes a suspect. Every glance too long, every silence too deep. The stranger hasn't returned. The priest hasn't reappeared. Even the constable is conspicuously absent. By the 8th bell, you rise. You stretch slowly, crack your knuckles, and adjust your shawl so the red ribbon peeks out just enough to be seen, but not enough to be obvious. The Tannery Gate sits at the edge of town, beyond the last torch, where the smell of leather and lye chokes most would-be wanderers. You walk there alone, not quickly, not hesitantly, just evenly. By the time you reach the fence, the sky is ink dark. A half-moon glints through clouds. The gate looms before you. Iron hinges rusted, one post leaning like it lost a fight with time. You wait, a moment, then another. Then, footsteps. Software controlled, female. You don't turn. She appears beside you, as if rising from the very air, cloaked again, but not hooded this time. Her face is pale, sharp, and utterly still. Her eyes scan you like a ledger. "You came," she says simply. "I'm curious," you reply. "Curious girls don't last long usually." "No," she says, "but they do change things." You cross your arms. "What do you want?" She glances past you, checking the shadows. Then, "I need a message delivered. No one will suspect you. They don't notice you unless they want something." You blink. Flattered. She ignores the tone, produces a folded scrap of parchment. No one else can do this. Not without drawing attention. You stare at it. "Why me?" "Because you can vanish." You exhale slowly. "And what happens if I read it?" Her lips twitch, almost a smile. "Then you'll know too much, which might make you useful, or dangerous. That doesn't help. But you take the parchment. It's heavier than you expect. Sealed with wax, dark green, no emblem. Just a smear of someone's thumb. You tuck it into your bodice without unfolding it. She steps back. "Tomorrow, if you succeed, you'll find another ribbon." You nod. "And if I fail?" She shrugs. "Then don't." She vanishes into the darkness. No rustling, no fading steps. Just gone. You stand there, the weight of the letter warm against your skin, and realise your heart is hammering. Not with fear exactly, with possibility. Another historical curiosity. There are scattered tales, never confirmed, of harlots employed as couriers during times of civil unrest. Women who passed unseen through checkpoints, carried secrets in hems and hair braids, delivered whispers wrapped in silk. Some call them spies, others say it's all legend. But tonight you feel the line blur. You turn and walk home. No, not home. Just where you sleep. As you pass the square, Agnes sees the ribbon in your hair and raises an eyebrow. You don't explain. You just walk past, and she doesn't ask. When you reach your corner, you curl into the straw and close your eyes. The night is cold again, the wind sharp, but under it all is something new. Not hope, not exactly, but intention. You grip the letter through your bodice and smile into the dark. If this town thinks it knows who you are, they haven't read your script yet. The sky turns pewter before your eyes open. You know the colour. It's the one that promises rain without delivering it, the kind that coats everything in wet air and damp regret. The straw beneath you has compressed into a mat no thicker than a whisper. You rise slowly, joints popping like ill-tuned instruments, and reach beneath your bodice for the letter. Still there, still sealed. You sit upright, brush straw from your skirt and glance at the others in the room. One woman is already gone. The other lies face down, snoring faintly. You try not to think about the dreams that live in her head. Your boots are still damp from the night before. You tug them on anyway and wrap your shawl tight. Then, with no breakfast and no farewells, you step out into the morning fog. The streets are slick, empty. Only the most desperate rise before the bells. Bakers, sweepers, the dying. You walk carefully, the letter pressed to your ribs, keeping to the narrow alleys and behind the lean-tos. The note gave no name, no destination, just a task. Deliver the message. You don't know where, not exactly, but you have an idea. You make your way toward the old herbalist's stall, tucked beneath a leaning canopy of wicker and moss. The stall's been shuttered for months, ever since the old woman vanished during the last plague scare. They say she fled, or was arrested, or dissolved into crow feathers. You've always liked that last version best. Today the shutters are open. A man stands behind the counter, not old, not young, pale eyes, thin hands, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms inked with vines. You stop 3 paces away. He looks up. You lift your chin slightly and tap your chest where the letter lies. He nods once. You approach and set the letter on the counter. He does not reach for it. Instead, he murmurs, "Password?" Your breath catches. No one gave you a password. You stare at him, expression flat. No one said there would be one, he smirks. Then how do I know it's meant for me? You consider, briefly. Then you say, because I'm the only one here who isn't trying to be seen. He studies you, then nods. He takes the letter and slips it beneath the stall without breaking the seal. Wait one day, he says. Same place as before. Before you can ask what that means, he adds, and keep the ribbon on. You walk away, heart pounding, fingers trembling just slightly. You've just crossed a line. You don't know what's on either side, but you know enough to stay quiet, and fast. You head back into the maze of the town's midsection, rows of crooked shops and 2 narrow alleys that always smell of onions and mildew. You pass the tavern, where Agnes is already arguing with a man half her size and twice her drunk. She spots you, raises an eyebrow. You keep walking. You don't stop until you reach the river again. You sit on the edge of a wooden plank that juts out like a rotting tongue. You let your boots dangle. You think, and you remember. The first time you came here was almost a year ago. You were fresh to town, bruised in more ways than you could name, and certain that the river might swallow you if you asked nicely. You didn't ask, but you considered. Now, here you are again. Same river, different girl. Somewhere in town the bells ring twice. It's barely mid-morning. You think of the man with the pale eyes, of the cloaked woman, of the merchant who laughed too loud, of the stranger in the hat, and you realise something. They're not the centre of this story. You are. Not a hero, not a villain. Just someone with a choice. Another historical morsel. Some scholars claim that harlots during the early Renaissance acted as intermediaries between guilds, spreading coded messages hidden in tapestries, embroidery, or even song lyrics. Others say that's romantic fiction, a flattering myth to soften the edges of suffering. But you like the idea. You like the possibility. Maybe you don't have power yet, but you have movement, you have reach, and more importantly, no one expects you to matter. That's the best kind of invisibility. You leave the river and head back toward the square. You pass a priest giving alms to a child and a drunk vomiting onto his own shoes. Balance, as ever. At the edge of the market, Rosalind stops you. Where were you this morning? Out. Doing what? Delivering bread, she snorts. To who? A noble's ghost? You smile thinly. Something like that. She watches you a moment longer than she should. You walk away before she asks more. Back in your alley, you take a seat, pretending to be bored, pretending nothing's changed. You resume your role and wait. Because now, you know, the game is on, and no one has figured out that you're a player. The next day crawls by, slower than any you can remember. Even the flies seem lazy, landing on your skin with no urgency, as if they too are waiting for something to happen. You shift from alley to alley, from shade to sun, doing your usual work, enough to keep suspicions down, not enough to dull your thoughts. You make a few coins, nothing dramatic, 1 drunk, 2 regulars, all of them forgettable. That's the beauty of your life. No one looks twice unless you make them. You keep the red ribbon tied around your braid, its tail brushing your shoulder like a reminder. You touch it often, not to adjust it, but to reassure yourself it's still there. By dusk, your fingers ache from clenching and unclenching the coin pouch too many times. The bells ring 8, then 9. You walk the town in a slow, careful circuit, watching for signs. A coloured cloth in a window, a phrase repeated twice. A wrong person in a right place? Nothing, just regular chaos. Someone arguing over stale fish, a child falling in the mud, a dog chasing its own tail like it owes it money. Then you see it. Not a signal, a shape. On the edge of the square, in the same alley where the herb seller gave you your instructions, hangs a strip of cloth. Not a ribbon, a kerchief. Red. You cross the square slowly, not looking directly at it. A man selling radishes calls out to you. You ignore him. At the alley's mouth, you stop. There's a narrow piece of paper pinned to the cloth. You wait until no one's watching, then tug both free and slide into the shadows. You unfold the paper. It reads, "You did well. One more task. Tonight, cemetery wall, midnight, bring nothing but silence." Your breath fogs as you exhale, not from cold, from intention. You fold the note and stash it under your bodice. Bring nothing but silence. That you can manage. You head to the river again, not to deliver, not to spy, but to think. The town feels like a stage tonight. Every window a watching eye, every curtain a mouth waiting to open. You reach your usual plank and sit. You swing your legs and let the water whisper below. It tells you nothing useful. When the bells chime 11, you rise. You take the long route toward the cemetery, keeping to the edges, your boots barely making a sound. The sky is clear tonight. Stars dot the black velvet of the heavens like spilled salt. The moon is a lazy sickle, hanging just enough to light your way. You pass the tannery. The smell of piss and old skins hits you like a slap. You pass the chapel, its windows dark, its pews no doubt empty. The gate creaks as you push it open. The cemetery is silent, and then you see her, standing by the low stone wall near the northern corner, cloakless this time. She wears plain clothes, brown wool, a scarf covering her hair, but it's definitely her. You approach. She doesn't speak. Neither do you. She hands you a folded scrap. You nod. She gestures toward a row of graves, then turns and walks away. You wait until she vanishes behind the chapel, then you unfold the paper. This one is short, no names, just one sentence. Buried beneath the 3rd stone from the left. Take only the letter. Leave the coin. You scan the row of graves. They are lopsided, moss-covered, ignored. You find the 3rd stone, a name barely etched. Martin, son of no one. Fitting. You kneel. The earth gives easily. Clearly disturbed before, you dig with your fingers. In the shallow pit, wrapped in cloth, a small metal tin. Inside, 2 things, a folded letter and a silver coin. You remove the letter, tuck it into your bodice. You replace the tin, this time with only the coin. You pat the earth flat. You stand. You walk. Simple, but not. Because now you know something. Something few are trusted with. Someone buried a message in a grave no one visits, protected by anonymity and mould, and you were chosen to retrieve it. A fringe fact from the dusty corners of historical speculation. It's been theorized that some medieval couriers, especially women, used grave sites as dead drops, counting on the fact that no one wants to dig where the worms live. You never believed those stories before. You do now. You exit the graveyard silently. The town is asleep. Even the rats seem to tread lighter. When you reach your corner, you don't lie down. You crouch by the wall and reread the letter. It's not addressed, but it's damning. Orders, names, dates. Someone's plan to move soldiers through the town under false pretense, using a holy relic as cover. You don't know the names, but you recognize the signature. Just one letter. Me. You fold it again and press it flat beneath your breastbone. This is no longer a game, this is something else, and you, the girl with dirt under her nails and a smile men think is for them, are holding a secret that could end people. You curl up and sleep with your arms crossed over your chest like you're trying to protect the whole town. Maybe you are. Morning arrives like an insult, loud, bright, and late to the truth. You wake with your cheek pressed against damp stone and your spine folded in ways that nature never intended. For a moment, you forget the letter in your bodice, the grave dirt under your nails, the weight of what you carried home. Then it all crashes back, uninvited and overwhelming. You sit up slowly, glancing around the alley. No one's nearby. Rosalind's spot is empty. Agnes is nowhere to be seen. A boy runs past with a loaf clutched in both arms, laughter ringing behind him as a red-faced baker stumbles in pursuit. The world carries on, unaware that something dangerous is now folded beneath your ribs. You reach inside your bodice and pull out the letter, just to make sure it's still there. You don't read it again. Once was enough. The words burn themselves into your thoughts. You feel different now. Not important, not exactly. Just awake. You tuck the letter back in and rise. You can't stay here. The square is already filling with carts, shouting vendors, and the usual soup of smells, onions, tar, fried fish, and the desperate breath of 100 men who never wash properly. You head south, toward the abandoned mill. It's a quiet spot. Not many pass through anymore. The roof caved in last spring, and the town never had enough coin or care to repair it. Now it's just a sagging skeleton of stone and splinters, haunted more by silence than ghosts. You sit beneath the collapsed wheel, listening to the river that used to power it. It hums low and steady, the same way it always has. Constant, indifferent, like time. You open the letter again, scanning the ink just once more to make sure your memory hasn't exaggerated it. It hasn't. The plan described in it is careful, military, not the panicked scrawl of a rebel or the bombastic raving of a zealot. This was written by someone who knows what they're doing, which means whoever Ms, she's not just passing messages for fun, and now you've carried 2. You remember what she said. If you succeed, you'll find another ribbon. You don't know whether that's a promise or a leash. You spend most of the morning watching the river and replaying every moment since she first appeared. How did she find you? Why you? What does she think you are? You head back into town at midday, ducking into the bathhouse to rinse the graveyard off your skin. You don't linger. The heat, the chatter, the closeness of strangers. It's too much today. By the time you emerge, the bells are tolling too. You wander toward the alley where the herbalist's stall stood. Gone now. Shuttered. No sign anyone was ever there. You keep walking. You pass the constable. He eyes you, but doesn't stop you. You pass the stranger in the wide-brimmed hat. He tips it again, same as before. Still doesn't speak. You pass the merchant with the too loud laugh. He's laughing again. You don't stop. Eventually you reach the market's edge, and there it is, a ribbon, red, tied to the corner of a rain barrel, flapping slightly in the wind like a signal flag. You sit across from it. You don't touch it. Not yet. Instead, you count to 20 in your head. Then again. You watch for anyone watching you. No one. You rise, walk past the ribbon, untie it with one smooth motion, and tuck it into your pocket. Inside is a note, folded small. Meet at dusk, back of the butcher's. Bring the letter. Simple. Director. Dangerous. The butcher's back alley is not a pleasant place. It's where meat scraps go to rot, where dogs scavenge, where children dare one another to poke at things that shouldn't be poked. But it's private. You head there as the sun begins to sink, tucking the note and the original letter into your skirt lining. You wait in the corner beside the smokehouse, where the scent of charred pork coats everything like dust. She arrives just before full dark. Same woman, different clothes. A brown cloak, a plain shift, hair braided tight. No smile. You hand her the letter. She takes it, unfolds it, scans it, then looks at you. What did you read? Everything, you answer. She nods once. Good. Not you shouldn't have. Not why did you? Just good. That scares you more than anything else. You're not just a runner anymore, she says. You're part of this. You want to ask what is this, but you don't, because deep down you already know. You'll receive your next task when we're ready, she says. Until then, stay quiet, stay invisible, and stay useful. She starts to turn, then pauses. And if anyone asks, she adds, you've never seen me. Then she vanishes again like fog slipping behind a tree. You stand there alone in the dark, heart racing. You've delivered letters, carried secrets, dug in graves, and now you wait again. Except this time, you're not just surviving, you're involved. You lie awake longer than usual that night, curled on your straw mat beneath the leaky corner of the roof, watching the wooden beams above your head creak and twitch like old bones in the wind. Sleep comes slow. Every time you drift, your mind yanks you back with questions. What happens now? Who's watching you? And what exactly have you become? The letter is gone, the coin is buried, but the ribbon stays, tucked in the lining of your bodice, now dry and still faintly smelling of rain and resin. It doesn't feel like a trophy. It feels like a tether. By the time your eyes close, it's nearly dawn. You wake late. Not that it matters. The square is already alive when you emerge from your borrowed corner. Children scream joyfully at pigeons. A pair of fishmongers argue about scales. The baker is throwing stale rolls at a dog again, and Agnes is holding court near the fountain, telling a wildly exaggerated story about a man who accidentally hired 2 harlots and didn't know what to do with either. You pass her. She smirks. "Morning, ribbon girl," you blink. "Didn't think anyone noticed," you murmur. She shrugs. "We all notice. We just pretend we don't." You nod and walk on. Today, you feel observed. Not just watched, but studied. As if the whole town suspects something shifted in you but can't quite name it. A customer approaches mid-morning, one of your regulars. Polite, pays well, says thank you. You go through the motions, but your mind is elsewhere. You're beginning to see the town in layers now. The top layer is noise, shouting, trading, begging, gossiping. The middle is movement, who walks where, who stops to talk, who pretends not to see. And underneath it all is the pulse of something else, something deliberate. You've started mapping it. Quietly. The way a thief maps a noble's house before a job, where people gather, who gets quiet when others approach, where the ribbons show up, who always disappears just before they appear. By midday, you know what you need to do. You head toward the weaving hall where women mend clothing, spin thread, and share news over broken needles and borrowed thimbles. You're not a member. But you know one of the girls, Tansy. Small, loud, sharp. Once stole your shoes, then gave them back 2 weeks later, better polished. You find her in the back, elbow deep in a basket of torn shifts. "Tansy," you say, keeping your voice low. "I need something unusual." She doesn't look up. Define unusual. Something you'd sell to someone who doesn't want to be recognised. That gets her attention. She looks up. "You want a disguise?" "No," you say. "Just misdirection." She stares for a moment, then grins. "Colour or cut?" "Colour. Wait here." She disappears behind a bolt of linen and emerges with a folded piece of red wool. Not bright, but not dull either. A shawl. You hesitate. "It's not exactly subtle." "Exactly," she says. "That's the point." You trade her 2 small coins and half a promise to return the favour. By the time you step back into the square with the red shawl draped over your shoulders, you know eyes are on you. You want them to be. Because while they watch you, they won't be watching someone else. This is the first time you've used yourself as bait. It won't be the last. As the sun dips toward the rooftops and the shadows stretch longer, you drift toward the north end of town, slowly letting people see you, counting the glances, the double takes. And then you spot her. Not M. Someone else. Young. Too clean. Holding a satchel too carefully. You follow her. Not close. Just enough. She makes a wrong turn. Intentionally, you think. And disappears behind the Coopers. You wait. She doesn't return. You circle wide and find the satchel wedged between 2 barrels. Inside, bread, dried herbs, and another note. Sealed. You leave it. Because this one isn't for you. That's how you know you're in deeper now. You don't take things unless you're meant to. Historical speculation time. In cities under siege or secret occupation, it's believed that women working in the streets often became accidental cogs in resistance networks. Not because they were trusted, but because they moved freely. Because people talked near them. Because they could hide in plain sight. Now you know it's not just speculation. It's lived truth. You return to your alley by twilight, tuck the red shawl away, and settle into your usual slump. Agnes tosses you half a heel of bread. "You planning something?" she asks. "Always," she snorts. "Good. I hate being the only one." You don't smile, not quite, but the corners of your mouth twitch, and as the night falls, and the square quiets, and the stars blink back into existence, you wait for your next ribbon, knowing it will come, knowing you will be ready. You wake in the middle of the night with a start, not from a sound, but from the absence of one. The wind has stopped. The dripping gutter outside the alley no longer taps its usual rhythm. Even the rats seem to be holding their breath. You lie still, listening. Then, faintly, like the whisper of silk over stone, you hear it. A footstep. 2. Not hurrying, not creeping, just walking with purpose. You sit up slowly, eyes adjusted to the dark. The alley is empty. But something flutters against your leg. A ribbon. Red. Tied gently around a stone. Weighted so it wouldn't blow away. You untie it. Folded inside is a message, no bigger than your palm. "Tonight, last gate, no words. Burn this after reading." You stare at it for a beat longer than you should, then tear it, twist it, and light it with a smouldering ember from the neighbour's hearth pile. It flares bright for a second, then crumbles into nothing. Last gate. That's the term used for the old western postern, the one half blocked by rubble, technically condemned, but still open if you knew how to twist the latch. It was once used for carting out garbage when the square got too full. Now it serves only the silent. You pull on your boots, wrap yourself in your dullest shawl, and slip through the town like smoke. It's a cold night, the kind that makes wood creak and breath sting. You walk faster. The last gate looms ahead, half swallowed by ivy, its stones older than the stories told inside them. You crouch low and lift the iron bar, rusty, always stiff, but it gives with a grunt. The door opens just enough for a shadow to pass through. You do, and on the other side, waiting as always, is her. But this time, she's not alone. 2 others stand beside her, one in merchant's clothes, the other in priest's robes. Neither look surprised to see you. No introductions, no names. The woman nods. You follow. They lead you up a hill path lined with broken milestones, away from the glow of town into the kind of dark that seems to drink light. The stars above are sharper here. No chimneys to blur them, no noise to muffle them. At the crest of the hill is an old watchtower, collapsed mostly, but its base still solid. You step inside. The air is still, heavy with secrets. The merchant hands you a pouch, heavy. "For your silence," he says. You shake your head. "I haven't earned anything yet." He smiles slightly. "That's why you have." The priest produces a small scroll sealed with a wax mark you don't recognize. 3 arrows in a circle. He doesn't hand it to you. Not yet. "We're close to a shift," the woman says, her voice low. "The kind people won't understand until it's already behind them." You nod. She continues. "We need couriers who don't just carry words but understand when not to ask questions." You wait. The merchant speaks next. "And eventually, when the tide turns, we need those couriers to speak clearly to the right people." That's what they're asking. To use your voice, your story, your place in the cracks of the city. Not just a message, a witness. The priest finally offers the scroll. You take it. Carefully, reverently. Inside, you already know, is the kind of truth that people kill over. The woman steps close. "You'll leave it tomorrow in the bell tower of St. Ulfric's, behind the 3rd rung. At sunrise you nod, and for the first time she touches your hand. Don't read this one." You meet her gaze. "Will you know if I do?" "No," she says. "But you will." They leave before you do, one by one, like figures drawn back into the shadows they came from. You stay a moment longer, letting the silence press against your ears, letting the weight of the scroll settle in your hand like a sleeping bird. Then you tuck it inside your shawl and begin the walk back. The stars are still out, but the eastern sky is pale now, bruised with the promise of dawn. You pass the sleeping dogs, the leaning fences, the corner where Rosalind sometimes hums in her sleep. You pass the door of the bakery, already warm. You reach the bell tower just as the first light touches the spire. You climb carefully, past rickety stairs and nests of birds not yet stirring. Behind the 3rd rung you place the scroll, and just like that, it's gone. You descend without a sound, step back into the waking town. Someone's calling for milk. A rooster crows off key, someone sneezes, life resumes. And you? You walk to the square, settle against your wall and wait like you always do. Except now, you know things no one else does. You've touched the web beneath the town, and the web has moved. The following day passes in a fog of routine. You sit in your usual spot, elbows on knees, eyes half-lidded. The square churns around you in predictable rhythms. Calls from stall keepers, clatter of hooves, the slap-slap of laundry against stone. You watch it all with the stillness of someone who has already moved somewhere else in their mind, and you wait. For what exactly, you're not sure anymore. The scroll is gone, the gate is closed, the ribbon did its job. Now there's only the hush that comes after something significant, before the next thing decides to begin. Agnes flops down beside you near noon, nursing a scraped elbow and the last bite of someone else's turnip. "You look smug," she mutters. "I hate when you look smug." You blink. "I'm just thinking." Smugly. You don't argue. You can't tell her that you've delivered a scroll that might alter a city's future. You can't tell her that your name, your existence, has suddenly gained weight in a game she doesn't even know is being played. Instead, you offer her half your crust. She eyes it suspiciously, then takes it. "Things have been strange lately," she says after a while. "Someone saw a priest run. Can you imagine? A priest running." You nod. You can imagine. And that merchant, what's his name? The one with the big nose and the sad eyes? He's closed up shop. Gone. You say nothing. Agnes leans close. "You wouldn't know anything about any of that, would you?" You look at her sideways. "Would it make you like me more or less if I did?" she considers. "More, probably. But I'd also feel obligated to punch you for not telling me." You chuckle softly. "I'll take the mystery." "Rude," she mutters, and gets up. The sky overhead is slate-coloured, streaked with wind-blown smoke from the tanneries. Clouds gather in lazy spirals, the kind that never quite become storms but hover just long enough to ruin linen drying in windows. You rise too. Not because you're being called, but because you have decided it's time. You wander the town without urgency, past the mill, past the fishmonger's stall, past the crumbling tower where someone once tried to sell skyberries. You later discovered they were just overripe plums. You end up back at the cemetery. You don't mean to, but that's where your feet take you. The gate hangs open now, wind clicking it gently against its rusted frame. You walk among the stones slowly, reading names half lost to moss and time. You reach Martin, son of no one. You kneel, not to pray, just to think. Someone used this place to pass something sacred, or dangerous, or both. Someone thought the dead were the only ones trustworthy enough to keep the secret. You wonder if more things are buried here than bodies. You press your palm to the earth and close your eyes. Then you hear it. A voice. Familiar. Not calling you by name, because no one does, but calling for you. You rise and step through the graves until you see her. The woman in brown, M alone this time. She nods at you once, then gestures toward a bench tucked beneath a cypress tree. You sit together. She doesn't speak at first, just watches the sky. Then, the message was received. You nod. No one followed you. Not that I saw. That's enough. A silence stretches. Not awkward, not cold, just full of things not yet said. Then she turns to you. "We'll be quiet for a while." You glance at her. "Is that a good sign?" It means things are moving, quietly, carefully. You shift on the bench. "So what do I do now?" She tilts her head slightly. "You do what you've always done." "Survive?" "No," she says. "Watch." You let that sink in. Because you have been watching. Always. From the edges. From under shawls and behind half-closed lids. You've seen things others miss because they don't think to look. She rises. Before she leaves, she adds, "And when the time comes, you'll know what to do. You want to ask when, or what, or why you, but you don't. Because the truth is you already feel it. You're not just the messenger anymore. You're becoming the memory, the one who sees, the one who remembers, the one who tells the truth when everyone else forgets. You walk back into town as the bells toll vespers. The streets glow gold for a moment before the sun ducks behind the rooftops. And you, nameless girl in yesterday's shift and a ribbon no one dares question, walk the cobblestones like they belong to you. Because in a way, they do. You've carried messages, and now you're one. The next morning something's different. It isn't the sky, it's still smeared with grey and stitched with gull cries. It isn't the smell, that same blend of damp wool, burnt bread and livestock breath. No, the square is as it always is, but the people are quieter, not hushed exactly, just less. Their movements slower, their glances longer, their laughter delayed, like it has to be pulled up from somewhere deeper than usual. You feel it in your bones too. Something is coming. You sit in your usual spot, hands folded over your knees, trying to look like nothing at all. But your eyes are working overtime, watching. A baker's boy drops a basket of rolls, then stares at them like he forgot what they are. A merchant snaps at a child and immediately apologises. Even Agnes passes you with only a raised eyebrow instead of her usual jab. Rosalind joins you, late, pale. You glance at her. Rough night. She doesn't answer immediately. Then, there's talk. You wait. About soldiers. About someone being taken from the town hall, not tried, just taken. You feel a ripple under your skin. What do you know? She asks. You shake your head. Less than you think. More than I should. She studies you. You're different. You don't deny it. She leans closer. Be careful. You nod. I'm trying. She leaves without another word. Later that morning, as the sun struggles through the cloud cover, you head toward the church, quietly, as always. Not because you expect answers, but because you're beginning to realise the game might be shifting. You slip into the back pew just as the priest begins muttering prayers to a handful of elderly parishioners. He's new, young, clean, nervous. The kind of priest who still believes everything he says. You keep your head down. You're not here for the sermon. You're here because something about this place feels. You watch the candlelight flicker on the stone walls. Watch the incense rise in lazy spirals. Watch the way people come and go. Some out of guilt, some out of habit, some because they're too tired to go anywhere else. And then you see it. A mark. Barely there. On the side of the second pew, scratched into the wood beneath the curve of a carved fish. A symbol. 3 arrows in a circle, the same as the scroll. You don't touch it. You just note it. Later, you check another place, behind the public well, where the stone is worn smooth from generations of buckets. There it is again, smaller, fainter, but there. You realise what's happening. The network is growing. You thought you were delivering messages, but now it's spreading through you, quietly, like moss on stone, like breath on glass. Back in the square, you pass the constable. He nods to you, not the usual leer, not the usual threat, just a nod, acknowledgement. He knows something, not everything, but enough. You walk past him without flinching, because you're not afraid of him anymore. That night you climb the bell tower again, not to leave anything, but just to see. From up high, the town looks small, software. The lanterns twinkle, the alleyways blur, you can't hear the shouts or the grumbles or the lies. Just breathe. Just the wind. You feel tall, and for a moment you feel safe. Down below, a figure moves quickly through the street. A girl, not you, but someone like you. She's carrying a basket. You watch her disappear into the shadows. Someone else is running errands now, someone else is watching. You're not alone in this anymore. That thought doesn't bring comfort exactly, but it does bring clarity. Because if they're still working, you're still necessary. You descend the tower quietly and disappear back into the street. The city exhales. You vanish into it once again. A figure in the background, invisible, but never not present. The next morning starts with screaming, not the kind you're used to. Lovers' quarrels, street brawls, the occasional goat tied too tightly. Number. This is the kind that starts from the gut and makes the back of your neck go cold before you even open your eyes. You're on your feet in seconds, slipping from your corner, shawl half tangled around your arm. People are running, not fleeing, just moving quickly in that way crowds do when they don't yet know what's wrong, but sense that something is. You join them, keeping to the edges. It's at the square. Of course it is. A man is shouting, red-faced, arms flailing, one shoe missing. He's gone, he howls. Gone! You recognise him. The merchant with the nose. The one who laughed too loudly. The one who received the first letter. No one laughs now. 2 constables flank him, trying to calm him down, but he's beyond calming. "They came in the night," he yells. "Took him. No one saw. No one stopped them." You catch enough to piece it together. Someone important, to him at least, has vanished. No ransom, no sign, just gone. You step back into the alley and press your fingers against your temple, because this isn't a coincidence, and you're not surprised. The gears are moving faster now. Later that day, whispers move through the market like wind under a cart, swift, invisible, everywhere at once. People speak of disappearances, of silent orders, of men being dragged from their beds without trial or proclamation. You pretend to be just as shocked. Agnes doesn't. She leans beside you as you peel a bruised apple. "They're cleaning house," she says quietly. You glance at her. "Who?" She shrugs. "Whoever holds the broom." You study her. "You ever think about leaving?" "All the time." "What stops you?" She chews a sunflower seed. "I want to see how the story ends." You smirk. She tosses the shell. "Don't get caught being clever, ribbon girl." That evening, a ribbon appears on your doorstep. Not red, white. You find it tied around a chipped pewter spoon stabbed into the mud. Tucked in the knot is a sliver of parchment. It's begun. Lay low. Speak only if signalled. No delivery, no movement. Watch the priest. That last line hits harder than it should. You've kept an eye on him already. The young one, the idealist, the one whose hands shake when blessing the bread. He's been quieter than usual. Jumpy. And now, apparently important. You pocket the note, untie the ribbon and slip back into the routine. That night you go to the church. Not inside, just close. You lean against the stone wall beside the apse and watch through the narrow glass slits. You see movement. Candles. The priest pacing, alone, muttering. You wish you could hear what he's saying. You wait. And that's when someone else arrives. Not through the main doors, through the side passage used by acolytes and gravediggers. It's her, not M, a new woman. Slender, pale, sharp profile. She doesn't knock, doesn't announce herself, just steps in, cloaked in the shadows, and disappears into the sanctuary. You move quickly around the building, try the rear window, cracked just enough to catch fragments. Accelerating. Not ready. We need more time? The priest. There'll be blood. The woman. There always is. And then silence. A few minutes later, she leaves again. You don't follow. You've learned not to. Instead, you stay rooted. The priest kneels at the altar after she's gone. For a long time. Too long. Eventually he rises, snuffs out the candles and walks into the dark. You do the same. That night, sleep doesn't come easily. You keep hearing his words. There'll be blood. And you wonder whose. Another scholarly debate floats through your thoughts. Some historians argue that uprisings and revolts always begin with silence, that the true signal isn't the first sword, but the last whispered word before it. You're starting to believe it. The white ribbon is still in your pocket. You rub it between your fingers until you drift off. And when you dream, it's not of clients or coins or shame. It's of towers falling in silence, and people like you, invisible people, walking calmly through the smoke. Dawn comes slowly, like a reluctant apology. The light is pinkish, fragile, and it clings to the rooftops as if unsure whether it should stay. You wake before the bells. Your body is stiff, but your mind is sharp. There's something in the air this morning, something tight, like a string pulled taut behind every movement. You rise, brushing straw and dust from your dress, and step into the alley's mouth. Already you can hear it. Not shouting, not bells, boots, dozens. Marching in rhythm, you slip between stalls toward the square and freeze. Soldiers. Real ones. Not the town's ill-fed constables in mismatched greaves, but men in polished leather bearing crests you've only seen burned into wanted posters. Their boots shine, their brows are furrowed, their swords don't wobble when they walk, and they're searching, not wildly, methodically, street by street, asking questions, holding up drawings. You duck into the baker's entryway and watch from the gap between the crates. A young woman is pulled aside, not arrested, not harmed, just questioned. You can't hear what's being said, but you recognize the tension in her shoulders. She's scared of saying the wrong thing, not of punishment, of implication. You shift away. By noon, you've already moved twice, once to a storage room behind the fish stall, once to the dry well in the lower square. You're no longer safe in your own corners. You're not being hunted, yet, but you're close enough to it that your shadow feels heavier than usual. At the mid-market bell, Agnes finds you behind the cooper's cart. She doesn't smile. "You need to vanish," she says. You shake your head. "If I run, I look guilty." "You are guilty," she snaps, then softens. "But so is everyone in some way." She's right, of course. You've carried secrets in your bodice. Hidden scrolls behind stone, traded silence for survival. Still, you stay. By late afternoon, the soldiers start posting notices. Thick paper, red ink, the kind of declarations usually nailed beside traitors' heads. You slip close to read one. It's not your name, but it's someone you know, a merchant. And below his name, in block letters, aided sedition, questioned once, confessed, executed. You step back, executed. No trial, no spectacle, just finished. People murmur as they read it. Some are angry, some are afraid, some nod like they knew all along. You realise the game has changed. Again. And you don't know the rules this time. That evening you go back to the bell tower, not to drop anything, but to watch. The square is quieter than usual. Shutters close earlier. Doors are bolted with more force. Conversations are shorter, tighter, whispered behind hands and barrels. From above, the town looks smaller than ever, like a map someone's folding too tightly. You count 12 patrols between the square and the river. None go near the graveyard. Interesting. You stay until the sky turns ink blue, until the first star appears. A pale pinprick over the hills. Then you climb down. You return to your alley, not to sleep, to wait. And when the last patrol vanishes from earshot, you take the white ribbon from your pocket, you tear it in half, not to destroy it, but to divide it. One piece you tie to your ankle, hidden. The other you knot beneath the hem of your shawl. Because if tonight is the night the town decides to snap, you'll need every signal you can carry. You lie down, cloak pulled tight. You don't expect dreams, but they come. In them, you are walking through the market, not invisible anymore. People part for you, not because they fear you, because they recognize you, and when you speak they listen. Because in this dream, you are not a harlot, not a courier, not a whisper. You are the message, and the time has come to be delivered. The night begins calm, too calm, the kind of calm that feels like a held breath, like the stillness before a thunderclap. You rise just before midnight, cloak wrapped tight, fingers already twitching toward old habits, checking your hem, your pocket seams, the braid at the nape of your neck where you hide a pin sharp enough to break a lock if angled right. You don't need it tonight, but it's good to remember who you are. The moon is high, waning, distant, but enough to silver the roofs and glint off the cobblestones. You move quickly, but not fast enough to look like you're hiding. Just another woman navigating the night, steps too practiced to raise suspicion. You head north, past the old bakery, the apothecary, the shuttered glassmaker's shop. You pass two soldiers and nod politely. They barely glance at you. A girl like you doesn't register. That's the magic. That's always been the magic. Near the edge of the square you find it. A ribbon, not red, not white, black, tied loosely around the hilt of a rusted torch bracket. You untie it. Inside, a message, short. Tonight, the bell tower, final signal, witness only. Your heart kicks once against your ribs, then goes quiet. Final signal, witness only. You change course, weaving back through the maze of alleys until you're standing again beneath St. Ulfric's tower. The bell doesn't toll anymore. The rope snapped months ago, never replaced. But the tower still stands, still watches. You slip inside and begin the climb. It's quiet, dusty, cold. At the top, you press your body into the shadows and wait. Below, the square is emptier than usual, but not empty. Figures move through it, purposeful. 5, 6, maybe more. Hooded, not soldiers. You recognize one. Her. M. Standing near the old fountain, cloaked, chin lifted. Then the doors of the town hall burst open. Soldiers flood the square, and so do the townsfolk. It's a standoff without speeches, no declarations, just movement, confrontation, fear. And then, a sound. From somewhere below. Not shouting. The bell. It rings. Once, twice, 3 times. You don't know how. The rope is gone. The clapper rusted, but the sound rises, pure, ancient. It rolls over the rooftops like thunder disguised as memory, and something changes. The people don't run, they stand. The soldiers falter. and in that moment the balance shifts. Not fully, not yet, but noticeably. Em doesn't speak. She just turns, slowly, and walks away. And the others follow, not arrested, not chased, just allowed. You watch from the tower, stunned. Something has been declared. Not in words, in action. Not war, awakening. You climb down and walk back into the town before anyone thinks to block your way. Your face is blank. Your heart is a storm, but your steps are steady. Roslyn finds you near the tannery. She looks shaken. What was that? You shake your head. A warning. From who? From everyone. She exhales. It's starting, isn't it? You nod, and you understand now why you were chosen. Not because you're skilled, not because you're fearless, but because you know how to watch, how to listen, how to survive the first chapter so you can tell the second. And now, your job changes again. You're no longer the courier, you're the chronicler. You return to your alley and settle down, not to sleep, not tonight. You lie on your back, eyes open, watching the stars reappear through cracks in the sky. And when your breath slows and your thoughts still, you know the truth. This isn't the end of the story. It's the moment it becomes yours. The night stretches long now, softer than before, the edges dulled by all that's happened. You feel the weight of it, not as burden, but as meaning. A fullness in your chest, like breath after silence. The stars are out again, distant, familiar. You watch them flicker behind wisps of cloud, like old friends blinking slowly, nodding across the sky. Your body is tired, but your mind, not frantic, not racing, just quiet. You think of the letter buried in a grave, of the ribbon fluttering from a spoon, of the moment the bell tolled even when no one touched it. There's something beautiful in knowing how stories travel, not always in ink or on paper, but through people, through watching, through remembering. And you are a keeper now. Not a name carved into a statue, not a voice on a stage, but something older, quieter, stronger. You tuck your hands beneath your head. The straw rustles. Somewhere nearby, a dog sighs in its sleep. A child turns over in a distant room. The wind hums in the eaves. It's not peace exactly, but it's close. And as your eyelids grow heavier, your muscles unwind, your breath evens out, you let it all fade, slowly, gently. The noise, the fear, the games. Let them drift. Just you and the stars and the quiet whisper of a town that hasn't yet forgotten how to hope. You've done enough for one day. More than enough. Close your eyes. Sleep, ribbon girl, sleep, end of script. Sweet dreams.